Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker with Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJShow, sponsored by SEMrush and Wix. Today, I have with me Will Critchlow, the founder and CEO of SearchPilot. Hey, Will, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks, Lauren. And thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, welcome back from Brighton SEO. Is it Brighton SEO USA, they're calling it,
Yep.
or Brighton SEO?
San Diego. I don't
Yeah.
know the official name, but it was a great trip anyway.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with what Kelvin's been able to do in the past decade or so. Even to the point where as soon as the San Diego Brighton SEO was over, I got a LinkedIn message and then a message from somewhere else saying, "Hey, save the date for Brighton SEO San Diego 2024." So he already has everything set up. I guess it was a success.
Huge
And
fan. I've been a fan ever since
Yeah.
the original Brighton days. So yeah,
Yes.
it's good
Absolutely,
fun.
absolutely. So, Will, before we get started talking about you know uh, strategies for getting buy-in in 2024 and the whole doing more with less style scenario, how about if you give our audience a quick overview of your multifaceted background in the world
Yeah.
of
So I mean, I've been doing this a long time. Kind of you as well, I think. But both of us go back a fair way. And
Yep.
so I originally started building websites way back in the 90s with my co-founder Duncan Morris, but we got into it formally when we launched Distilled. So Distilled was our SEO agency. We got started in 2005 and we built that out to eventually having offices in London, New York, Seattle, running the Search Live conference series, Distilled U training, all those kinds of different good things, and ton of fun. And that we did that solidly it turned out to be 15 years in the end. And in early 2020, just before the pandemic became the only thing everyone was talking about, we spun out of Distilled, the company that I'm running today, which is SearchPilot. And so that SearchPilot is essentially a bootstrap tech startup. It used to be the R&D team of Distilled, and we focus on SEO testing for very large websites. So SearchPilot is a software platform and associated services and so forth to help big websites prove the value of SEO. And we spun that out. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, so at SearchPilot, you're working a lot with in-house SEOs then?
Yes, we're often alongside agency folks, but yeah,
Okay.
we're almost always always in fact working directly with in-house folks, and they are using the platform themselves or collaborating with our professional services consultants who help them build out a testing program and build those tests. And so yeah, so my background was agency side. Then we got started building the platform that became SearchPilot. People might know from we called it Distilled ODN back in the day, the Optimization Delivery Network. And yeah, we spun it out. We sold the rest of the business to a company called Brain Labs. Brain Labs has gone on to incredible things like 1,000-person agency or something now, I think, and rolled up a whole bunch of different services. So they started in paid search, added our SEO capabilities, added CRO, Amazon marketing, influencer marketing, paid social, all kinds of different angles. So they're doing great. And they took on, the old Distilled consulting team. And I helped them with the integration, but now I'm fully back focused on the SearchPilot side.
Excellent, excellent. So since it's SearchPilot, you are working with so many in-house SEOs and things like that. I'm sure, well, it's almost the end of November. So planning for Q1 2024, we're right at the verge of doing so. Budgets are being planned right now. I know in our State of SEO report at Search Engine Journal, one of the top challenges listed moving in the next year is really getting buy-in and getting buy-in on new projects and budgets going into 2024, especially with the turbulent economy that we've been facing, and with next year being a huge question mark in that regards. So your ability to work hand in hand with the in-house side, what sort of I'd say what sort of where are a lot of the folks that you're working with, where are they in their planning? Are they experiencing similar challenges internally? And has there been more of an overall move to, let's say, what's the larger ROI on this, treating it campaign by campaign, things along those natures.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a question, right?
Yeah.
Budget season is always a thing, but it's under a special pressure, I think, with we're out of zero interest rate phenomenon times, right? The interest rates are higher. Who
Yes.
knows where the economy is going? There's certainly been slowdowns in some sectors, and there's different uncertainties in different parts of the market. So I think we're definitely seeing those conversations are under more pressure than they have been in recent years. Not the kind of panic that we saw in March, April, May 2020,
Right.
but I've compared it actually more to what we saw in digital marketing in the global financial crisis era, the kind of 08,
Yes.
09 kind of
Yeah.
era, when, I mean, you were operating back then. You'll remember as well that it just felt like that uncertainty just grew. And it wasn't like people pulled every budget. It's just things slowed down, decisions took longer. Like you say, there was more pressure on ROI calculations. There was more scrutiny on all of those decisions. And that's what we're seeing now. So as I have these conversations around our customer base and with our prospects, I'm hearing folks, in some cases, say engineering resources have been allocated away from SEO, but we're still being asked to do more with less. And that there's a lot more pressure from a lot more CFO scrutiny, a lot more, as you say, oversight of those different kinds of areas. In the midst of that, spend has continued. Yeah, this is definitely not doomsday scenario, and I know it's been tough out there, particularly for many agencies. Actually, I've spoken to a lot of agencies who found it that their spend is under significant pressure. But I think we're definitely seeing forward-thinking businesses spending, adapting, investing in this market. It's just they're asking those hard questions, and I think we've been trying to work with a lot of the folks we know to help them position those conversations for success and think, what is it that your senior leadership needs? What is that your CFO is going to be asking for? And can you get that lined up, ahead of time? But remember, you do need to go and get this budget locked in.
Yes.
If you're going to be successful, you're still in a competitive market. Your competitors are still spending. You still have to go. And I think history has taught us that folks who do invest through downturns, slowdowns, come out stronger the other side. And so as long as the business fundamentals are there, these businesses are all going to be bouncing back. They're all going to be doing great as the economy picks back up. And as the uncertainty hopefully starts to recede, and the folks who continued investing through those times are setting themselves up for success. So they have there's a need to do that, I think.
One trend I've definitely been seeing over the course of this year, which is beneficial for organic investment in content, investment in the long term, is that companies are doing less of the shoveling funds into Google ads and Facebook and social ads and getting somewhat of a return, sometimes no return or a very small return on that. And in that regards, it has opened up budget opportunities, especially if an SEO or overall content campaign can be set up to show that long-term return on investment, and even sometimes even an immediate return on investment if you're building on top of a sound foundation, right? So are you seeing that with some of the companies that you work with as well? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of exposure to where the paid budgets are going, to be honest, but we're certainly seeing that the second part of what you said there, absolutely, that when you can show that return, and one of the things I was talking about in Brighton actually was having certainty and proof points around the outcome can unlock those budgets in kind of magical ways. And I think one of the things that folks in SEO should remember in particular is big numbers that feel very big to us as individuals, as teams, as budget holders, are often not that big in the grand scheme of things compared to company budgets. I mean, you mentioned paid budgets. They're often order of magnitude bigger. Yeah. And I think I've experienced this even running a small business, and you've run small businesses as well, that the things that we can spend money on can be quite significant. I've signed $40,000 HubSpot contracts in an agency. That's dozens of people, not even hundreds of people. And if you can spend tens of thousands of dollars in a company that size, a multi-billion-dollar organization with a marketing team in the hundreds, actually has a lot of money to spend. And that's actually one of the key messages that I've been kind of continuing to espouse is these budgets are out there. These companies are spending money. And
Right.
the fact that you're out there asking for $250,000, $500,000, whatever it might be, that's actually totally achievable. Remember, they're paying your salary, they're paying your engineers' salaries, they're paying the agency fees, they're paying the data, the tools, the infrastructure, the ops. Like, big companies are spending tons of money on this stuff. And I had a conversation with Eric, who's at A16Z, runs the SEO program within the A16Z family, and he was talking about he was being cagey about who it was, but a multi-billion-dollar scale up that said, what would you call the SEO budget there? And he said, well, actually, I've put the spreadsheet together. I helped them map this out, and the number is $18 million a year. And that's when you've got fully loaded project managers, PMs,
Right.
engineers, data folks, designers, writers, agency spend, tool spend, all of these kind of things fully in. And I think there's too much of a temptation for small business folks to feel like the SEO budget is the money you spend on the agency. It's that $5,000, $10,000 a month, whatever it might be.
Right.
And that's not the budget. The budget is the full cost of running this program. And that's in the millions for many, many of these organizations. And it will continue to be all the way through the downturn or slow down or whatever this economic situation that we find ourselves in turns out to be. And so I think, don't be disheartened, but do look to those to be able to make that ROI case.
So you'd previously mentioned the ability to get engineering teams working on engineering and development, working on actually making the changes necessary to succeed in SEO, right? And how some of those teams may be getting smaller, maybe they're already put on different projects, but then in the budget itself, you mentioned engineering and development as well. How important is that to how important do you feel is it to make sure that I guess that's part of the planning, so that way 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the road, everything that needs to be integrated is actually done and not.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the commitment. If you're saying, and as we should be, I think, if you're saying we're going to hit these numbers and we're going to achieve these growth rates, we're going to achieve these project outcomes, you need the commit from the business to say these resources will be there to achieve those goals. And I think another thing that I have shied away from in the past, but I certainly think the further I go into my career, the more I think it's a mistake to shy away from is that accountability. SEOs are often shy of taking on targets, quotas, goals, and so forth. But even forecasting is something that I think the industry is too naive about. We think, oh, just because there's unknowns and uncertainties, we can't possibly forecast what's going to happen in organic search. And
the term "it depends" does not work when you're dealing with CFOs.
It really doesn't, and nor should it, because where does it not depend? Your sales folks are out there saying, well, it depends what my customer's CFO does. It depends what there's contingencies in every single walk of life, and yet we expect them to forecast. And I think marketing teams are no different, SEO teams are no different. But let me tell you, there's another trend actually that I think is very relevant to this, which is one of the actually most frequent conversations that I've had this year, which I found a little bit surprising, is the number of folks who are moving their SEO team into their product org. So we are finding more and more SEO teams reporting into the VP product rather than into the CMO. And I mean, who knows where they exactly report to each other, but that concept of SEO as a product discipline is something that we're seeing certainly across the folks that we spend our time talking to. So, for SearchPilot, that tends to be e-commerce, jobs, travel, real estate, like substantial, large websites where the product is very tightly integrated to the user experience. But even in media organizations, we're finding SEO getting very tightly coupled to product. And what that often means is squads of product managers, engineers, designers, all aligned to that objective. And if you do it right, everybody ladders up to, we're all share the same goals, right? We're trying to help the business succeed. And I think one of the things that we've focused a lot on in our work is actually aligning with the long-term direction of travel of Google and other search engines as well. That sometimes, the sugar rush of a short-lived success is great to juice short-term numbers, but really what you want is sustainable ROI, and that
Right.
was what you mentioned as well. And I think any of us are kidding ourselves if we don't think that comes from doing things that are great for the users. And so we spend a lot of time doing what we call full funnel measurement. So we're measuring the uplift of the organic traffic side of things, but also the impact on conversion rate, the user experience metrics on the back end of it as well, and making sure that these hypotheses that we have, that we say we hope this is going to mean that we rank better, or that we get more clicks from organic search or whatever. And we think that when they land on this page, it's, ideally better, but certainly no worse. And obviously there are some things that are pretty neutral. If you change structured markup or something, that's not really going to change the user experience. But if we're changing the page in substantial ways, it should be good for the user, because if it's not going to be sustainable in the long run. And what we're seeing more and more is that those hypotheses are actually gated by the product team. The product team will not let an SEO change go out, even if it's net positive, if it's bad for users, and I mean, with good reason, because it's likely to be a short-lived thing.
So speaking of the funnel, right? Like we all know that SEO is not a direct response marketing technique. It's not search keyword, find site, buy, done. This is what you got. This is what we invested. This is what we got. There's all kinds of touch points throughout the funnel. There's multi-touch attribution, right? Which is massive. We know that if someone's reading a piece that's been published on the site that ranks well, it's mid-funnel, we can retarget, remarket that individual in the future. Maybe they're reading a comparison piece between two different SaaS solutions that's hosted on your site. Therefore, it's farther down in the funnel. The buyer found your solution via something like G2 or Capterra. They do the research. They find something that you've published about your solution. They finally buy. So I guess my question is, how there's direct SEO, and then there's SEOs, the role that SEO plays and organic search plays in the entire conversion. How much multi-funnel attribution? Multi-attribution points are you tracking with your clients there?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different ways of approaching this. So when we're talking conversion rate, we can track any kind of metric that makes sense. We also, though, we do a surprising amount of looking almost exclusively at organic traffic. So despite what I just said about the full funnel, there's an element of trusting Google to do the job of saying, if they're getting so good at the contextual, sending folks to the right place, to the right page. If that searcher is looking for the thing and you're the right answer, that's where they're going to end up. And so there's a lot actually of saying, if we can push the organic search up while doing things with strong hypotheses. So this is not about the kind of the back in the day, the clickbait off-topic ranking for completely irrelevant terms. But if you have a strong hypothesis that this is going to improve the user experience, and then it turns out to improve organic search visibility,
right?
I'm going to say that's a pretty strong argument that you're moving in the right direction. Now, it's obviously not dollars and cents ROI, and when we're doing that, we're focused much more on the attribution. But I think, philosophically, I'm right there with you. One of the beauties of organic search is it's not a per-click cost medium. And so you can do things that get visibility throughout a whole swathe of that buying experience that you couldn't afford to buy per-click ads for. Some of that top of funnel stuff, there's no way you could be paying for all of that traffic. And it only works because it doesn't have an incremental cost. And some of those things are evergreen, that you can put them out there and they can get traffic for decades, and you can amortize that cost over that whole time period. So I think folks should, my MozCon talk actually last year, I focused a lot on this idea of, I used a basketball analogy. I mean, you're a basketball fan as well, I think. And of the way that analytics in the modern professional NBA has pushed teams towards more shots around the rim and more 3-point shots, and has kind of not completely killed the mid-range. There's obviously still the specialists, and we can have those interesting discussions, but has reduced the effort in the mid-range. And my argument, my analogy, that maybe a bit tenuous, maybe a little stretched, was that the kind of SEO testing that we're doing is the dunks and the layups. It's the things where you've got a very high chance of success. You can measure it with a high degree of confidence, and when you roll those things out, they achieve the numbers for you. And the 3-point analogy equivalent is new content production. The idea of producing new things, sowing those seeds of evergreen content for next year, for 5 years from now. And they don't all work. They have a lower hit rate, just like the 3-point shot does, but they're so valuable that they've got to be part of your kind of armory. And I think that's the mindset that I'm kind of increasingly leaning towards, is the big function of SEO in a product-driven environment is incremental improvements and big bets on scalable development of site sections.
Yes. And then, speaking of turbulence, there's multiple different levels of turbulence that we're getting into next year. Not only do we have a questionable economy, but then we also have changes in the engines themselves, right?
It feels like there's an update every half hour.
There is 4 updates happening at once, 3 updates happening at once. We also have, Google dramatically expanding sponsored listings, sponsored products, Google Shopping, whatever it may be, deeper into where the organics used to be, right? So instead of just 2 or 3 ads, we're seeing ads on 1, 2 scrolls.
Carousels, images, videos, all the rest of it. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, it's a question of whether or not Google's going to roll out the search generative experience, right? So what are you seeing those kind of questions affecting forecasting going into next year? Because it's difficult to forecast upon numbers where that the user is going to see the organic listing, they're going to click on the organic listing, they're going to experience that, where 1 month from now, 1 week from now, 6 months from now, you may have the same exact organic listing, but it's not necessarily a number 1, number 2, number 3. It's actually number 7, 8, 9, actually number 11, 12, 13, once you count all of the other assets as Google's added into the search results.
Yeah, I mean, I should preface my answer here by saying I am a massive optimist. I'm a techno optimist in this sense as well. I love the technological development. I think all these things it's never a linear path, but we're moving towards things that are great for us as users and for us as searchers and just as human beings. And in fact, I think Kelvin's right there with me, right? The founder of Brighton SEO. He was giving away search engine optimist t-shirts at Brighton SEO. So that I should lay my cards on the table and say that's where I start from.
I like that because also at the same time, I think almost every SEO is beta testing Google SGE, and we have in our heads that when that query is done, everything's going to be pushed down. There's going to be an article, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, but we tend to forget that we're the ones beta testing it, right? The average user is not seeing that.
And we're definitely
going to roll out or not. I think Danny said it's still experimental. We'll see, whatever it may be, but it's just like, it is easy to get into a doomsday pessimist scenario when you see that, and you have to kind of remember at the end of the day, well, this isn't even live yet, or is it even close?
So I'm in the market for some innovative wagers in this area. I'd love a side bet or two. If some folks who hear the show who are a bit more doomsday scenario than me want to place a side bet on what's going to happen to total organic traffic trends in the coming years, I'm up for that. So a few thoughts, assorted thoughts. Are people factoring into their forecasts? In general, I would say what I've seen is a lot of looking at long-term year-over-year trends. If you're in a thin affiliate space and your search traffic has been declining year over year over year, that trend is going to be tough to reverse.
Yeah, because
you're not super aligned with the direction that Google is pushing in. On the flip side, I'm so bullish on organic search. It's still the biggest channel for basically every website that I ever see. It is also the biggest growth opportunity for most websites that we work with. Just when you look at the SEO capabilities and opportunities and growing demand for their services, but it's the least well understood of most of their digital marketing
Yes.
channels. And so I think those three pillars, that's why I feel I have a job. And so I think the fact that it is most folks' biggest channel means that it's not going away quickly, no matter what happens, even if you're not as optimistic as me. My approach to those kind of forecasting is to think less in terms of a single forecast and more in terms of scenarios. So I would, if I was talking to the C-suite or my board or whoever else, I would say, here's our central case. Here's what we think is going to happen based on historical trends, the activities, the investments we have in place, the activities and initiatives that we're working on. There's a chance that Google rolls out SGE in our industry and it has this impact on our search volume, in which case that looks like this scenario.
Right.
Conversely, there's a chance that our initiatives work better than we expected, and we have an upside scenario as well. So I like to think in terms of scenarios rather than single forecasts, because point forecasts, I mean, they're useful for certain kinds of planning, but I feel like most seasoned executives do understand that there is inherent uncertainty and this stuff just totally outside of our control.
Yes.
Specifically on the SGE point, I am not sold on chat as the interface for a lot of search queries. I'm a big fan of the existence of chat tools. I think, we're recording this. We still don't know what the end point of the OpenAI, I don't even know what words I can use that don't have expletives in them to describe what has been going on over the last 5 days. At the time of recording, the last news I saw is that a lot of folks are still joining Microsoft and OpenAI seems to be falling apart. Maybe they've changed that around now and Sam's back in charge. I have no idea. But notwithstanding the chaos that's happening to them and another kind of turbulence, I think those kind of tools are incredibly powerful. Are they what you want in response to most queries, search queries, where you're searching for a thing? I'm a bit less sold on that. I think even when they are, they're going to evolve to have a lot more links in them when you're in a search context, because they are the beginning of the answer. They are not the end of the answer. And especially with the folks we work with, where, if you're thinking e-commerce, for example, you're not going to buy it from the chatbot. I don't think you're going to buy it from the e-commerce site or the retailer or whoever.
Where there's user reviews, the stars, everything else, the dimensions, sizes,
and there's information about shipping, all kinds of different things. So I think it may be that the chatbot ends up recommending to you the best place to buy the particular thing that you were looking for, which is a form of search in itself. And I think the techniques and the factors that go into that will evolve just as search has evolved over the 20 plus years that we've seen this industry evolving. I think a lot of that is a form of SEO in a sense. And there's another interesting piece, which is, where do the ads go? And so the other reason that I'm bullish on there being organic links is I think there have to be ad links, because I don't think Google is going to turn off 98% of their revenue overnight.
No, exactly.
And I think they're not going to go with only ad links, because I think that's a degraded user experience. So I think there's going to be a combination of advertising links and organic links, and our job is to win the organic, just as it always has been. And so I think I've mentioned this a few times recently, and he's going to get bored of me quoting him, but Marshall Simmons over at Define Media Group, previously in-house at the New York Times, one of the first things he told me when I got into the industry was change is job security. And that his experience, which is even longer than mine, is that every time the search engines change stuff, SEOs have more opportunity and are in more demand. And I don't see this being any different. So I'm optimistic on the technology side. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great for us as users and as individuals, but I'm also optimistic on the marketing side. And I think it's going to be great for businesses. And I think in the intersection of all that stuff is where you and I and the audience play, and it's going to be fun.
Outstanding. So just to recap, what are three things that either in-house SEO teams can do or agencies can do right now to help prepare forecast for the upcoming year?
Yes, we've talked a lot about the forecasting side and the budgeting side. I think the thing that I would draw us back to is to remember the performance side.
Right.
Ultimately, hit your numbers and the budget will you'll find a way of making the budget side work out. So I would probably come at it from that side of things, is saying, okay, yes, we've talked a lot about the dollars. Let's think about performance. So speed is important in this environment. So how are your initiatives going to be quick and high confidence? So I called that move fast and prove your worth. So that's get returns quickly and be able to demonstrate those returns. And obviously I'm slightly talking my book here because I feel like testing is a great way to do that, but there's a reason why I'm working in testing, and it's that I think it's highly effective. And so moving fast and being able to demonstrate that ROI, that's the first one. The second one is there is an argument for efficiencies right now. Much as we might all want to be pedal to the metal, CFOs are going to be saying, okay, but how can you get more with the same budget you had last year? Or what happens if we reassign this in different areas? And so one of the things that we've been quite focused on is making sure that you try and it sounds easy when you say it, but only do the things that work, and cut out the bits of those initiatives that are ineffective or a drag on the program. And this is the time to cut that dead weight. And I mean, you mentioned it from the paid search side. There's bits of all paid accounts, no doubt, that can be turned off without great damage. And I think probably the same is true in a lot of organic teams and initiatives. And specifically from our side, in the testing side, what we're trying to do is we're saying, if 20-25% of your tests are positive, there's an efficiency story for your CFO in there, which is the other 80% that is either negative or inconclusive. You don't even have to bother your product and engineering teams with maintaining that stuff. You can, you run those tests quickly. The positive stuff you roll out, the negative or inconclusive stuff, that is a saving in itself, because instead of going to your team with your engineering team with 20 requests, you're now going to them with 5 or whatever number it might be, and you're getting all of the same uplift for less effort. So there's an efficiency play. So we're going fast, with confidence, we're being as efficient as we can. And I think the final point is, and this maybe does tie a little bit back to the budget rather than just pure performance, is loss aversion is a really big psychological thing. We mentioned the uncertainty in the market, both on the Google side, on the economy side, and rather than telling the story of how you're going to double-digit percentage growth, bust the targets year over year, whatever, having the confidence that we're going to avoid, if we don't do this, we will fall behind the competitors in these ways, and those kind of folks will spend to avoid the loss. And again, bringing it back to our day-to-day experience, the thing that we're working a lot on there is detecting those small bad ideas. Like big bad ideas, you spot straight away, right? You do something big and bad and you notice it in your metrics immediately. You roll it back, you say sorry, and move on to the next thing. The really dangerous thing is the -2%, -3% kind of death by 1,000 cuts, because you roll out a bunch of them, and that is such a drag on, that's so much incremental performance that you're going to have to achieve before you're even back to square one, before you can get to growth. And so that's why we're trying to make sure that the folks we work with have the capability in place to detect those small bad ideas, because nobody can only have good ideas. There's always going to be a mixture of this stuff, but you have to say, okay, let's kill the big bad ideas and the small bad ideas. Killing the inconclusive stuff is the efficiency play, and that focuses on the move fast with high confidence.
Excellent. Will Critchlow, thank you so much for joining today's show. This has been incredibly valuable, especially with planning for next year.
Been a blast. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank our sponsors at SEMrush and Wix as well, for making today's show possible. Will, where can people find you online?
I mean, too many places, but I'm still on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days.
Are you still there? Yeah.
At Will Critchlow. I can't give it up, but I'm also on Threads at Will Critchlow, and LinkedIn under my name as well. Or you can find SearchPilot in all the usual places, as well as at searchpilot.com.
How do you like Threads?
So I love it. We just need to get past the tipping point. Do you remember early Twitter? That kind of like 2007, 2008 Twitter, where it felt like every day more and more was cascading onto Twitter. It's just not, it's not quite the Schelling point for me yet. It's not quite where everyone is. on Threads, I mean. And you know, I love it, and you know, I just want everybody to decide, and let's just skip to the end game, wherever it's going to be, whatever platform it's going to be. Let's just have one.
Yeah, I've been spending most of my time, well, probably not my casual browsing time, but most of my productive social media time on LinkedIn recently.
I mean, that's the other thing, is LinkedIn is where the where the business happens, right? So if folks want to hear just the professional side, then that LinkedIn is probably the place to get that. But if they want the basketball nonsense and cooking and all the rest of it, then those other places are good too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again. It's been a pleasure having you today.
Thank you.
Looking forward to any upcoming presentations you may have, things like that, and then maybe following up next year on
that would be great.
How all of this shook out across the board. All right. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more and click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing.